Welcome to the Energy Central Power Talk titled Field Mobility Challenges and How GIS Can Help Solve Them. I'm Audra Drazga, the Vice President of the Energy Central Power Industry Network. Energy Central is a community platform with a goal to help professionals in the industry to share, learn, and connect in a collaborative environment. Our Power Talks are short 20 to 30 minute pre-recorded video or audio sessions bringing together industry experts to share their expertise around a topic that we feel is of interest to the industry and our community members. We invite Energy Central members to interact with the Power Talk discussion by using the comments section to ask questions, share your feedback, or add your own insights. If you have questions, the Energy Central Community Management Team will do our best to gain answers from the presenters and/or other community members. This session is part of a special series brought to you by the Locana team. And now I'm pleased to share with you today's Power Talk.
Hello and welcome to the Locana Energy Central Power Talk. My name is Jeff Archer. I'm a Senior Solution Engineer at Locana. And joining me today is my esteemed colleague, Ty Vanden Akker.
Hi, glad to be here, Jeff. This is going to be fun. I've been looking forward to talking about this for a long time.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this too. I haven't done this kind of thing for a while, so it's good to be back in the saddle, so to speak. So, we wanted to talk to you guys about today in this Power Talk is, some of the experience that Locana has. First of all, who are we? Like, who is Locana and what do we do? Kind of some of the things that we do in the utility space, some of the experience that we've gained over the past several decades, and some of the challenges that we see that our customers are coming up against. And we think that we're going to be able to relay some of that experience, and maybe it sounds familiar to you. So the idea here is today we want to try to be helpful. We want to let you know that we do this kind of thing all the time. We understand. Hopefully you get something out of it. If not, we want to hear that too. But either way, definitely reach out to us afterwards. Let us know what you think.
Between the two of us, I was trying to think of how many utilities we might have worked with. I mean, not just utilities, but lots of organizations in terms of field service and what their needs are. So mostly enterprise scale, really large utilities, gas and electric, but water too, and even down some of the kind of mid-tier municipal utilities. We've done some work there. So pretty good understanding between the two of us of what those utilities workflows are, what they look like, and what some of the challenges are that they encounter.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's, anything that can be piped to your house or come through a wire to your house. I mean, we've pretty much done it all. So, and definitely Locana as a whole. So a bit about Locana, you may have heard of us by a different name over the past 20 years or so, formerly Critigen. Locana is a new name that we've taken on to kind of reflect our space in the marketplace. And I think we are really unique. And I like to say a lot, we're not an engineering company who does GIS, we're a GIS company who does GIS. So traditionally, Locana has focused on geospatial technology. Utilities is one of the largest markets that we serve. And, we've built a lot of partnerships over the years, in particular with companies like Esri and SAP and Salesforce. And, use those partnerships to kind of design and implement solutions for a lot of our customers.
A lot of those partnerships really speak to the integration focus that we have. So one way that we're different from a lot of GIS companies, we really focus on that integration, focus on integrating GIS and geospatial technology into the business systems and make sure that those are fully linked together. So you get all the value from both of those investments.
Yeah, and I think that's really core of what we're going to be talking about today in this Power Talk. And it's core to our business. I mean, we're very proud of those partnerships. So we're an Esri Platinum partner. We were actually the first Esri partner to get that designation some years ago. And still, it's a relatively small subset of Esri partners that have that Platinum name. I think they're up to 17 was the last I heard. So we're very proud of that. We're also proud of our partnerships with Salesforce and SAP. We're a Silver SAP partner. And we work very closely with them as kind of their go-to geospatial solution. So again, going to be core of what you hear us talk about today in this Power Talk. And how we've gained our experience and helped people have some success. So go ahead, Ty. I think I was.
No, well, this will be fun. I'm ready to dive in if you are. We really wanted to talk about the mobility side of things. And when we talk about mobility, there's generally one of two ways that companies come at it. They'll either come in and have an enterprise mobility initiative, and they'll be really focused on the field user and the tool set that the field user has. The other approach is more of an enterprise work management, schedule dispatch, optimization kind of an approach where they want to replace that. They want to track the work better. They want to optimize it. And depending on which angle a company takes, they'll come in with certain biases, usually not even recognizing that those biases exist. So, Jeff, I thought we could talk a little bit about some of each of those approaches today. And maybe somebody out there listening is coming in from an enterprise work management approach and needs to hear what other things do I need to think about, or similarly, if they're coming in with an enterprise mobility initiative, what else is out there and what do they need to be aware of?
Yeah, and I think this is great for me personally, and I know you too, Ty. We've got so much experience, like we've got stories, right? We've seen people come at it from both directions and sometimes even third and fourth directions. But generally, those common threads are, they recognize that there's a need to be more efficient in the field. In a lot of cases, there's, still paper that's going out. There may be a lot of Excel spreadsheets involved. We've seen a lot of that. And they want to kind of make this a system that's digital and integrated to be able to not only manage the work in the field, but also to bring that content that they generate as they're going through their day-to-day activities and get it to the right places in the enterprise. So in a lot of cases, they don't come at it, like you kind of alluded to, at a holistic view. They'll come at it from one of those different angles. And it's like, we either need to do enterprise work management or we need to do this mobility initiative. And the tendency that I've certainly seen in the marketplace is that over the years, there might have been point solutions that they got for one particular thing. Maybe it was an as-built point solution, or they had a work management solution. And over the years, these things kind of build on each other. And then you get to this point where you've got a system that really is not very integrated and kind of has all these different little stovepipes in it.
Yeah, there's a big utility I've been working with that you're bringing right to mind. They told us when we started working with them that they had at an enterprise level. So this is coming in kind of in an enterprise mobility initiative. Enterprise level, they had 42 different field mobile apps that they support. And we heard that from the CIO, and that a strategic imperative they had was to take that number down. And there were lots of reasons for that, right? There's the need to reduce the number of vendors they deal with, the number of different skill sets that are required to support and maintain it. And that's before you even get to some of the things like how many apps does a guy need to have on his device to do his work? How many different things in different places do we need to support?
Yeah, and you reminded me too. Just recently, I talked to a utility, and you beat my personal record. Theirs was 36. They had 36 individual applications on the devices going out in the field. And, we kind of are joking, but there's a lot of utilities that are in that boat. Over the years, they have these things that they get a comfort zone with. And that same utility that I was working with, it wasn't just in the field, it was also the dispatchers. One of the things that kept coming up was they have 6 monitors on the desk of every dispatcher in this utility. And that was just to deal with all of the windows they had to have open for all the different stuff they were coordinating in the field. Different applications, different databases supporting those applications. And one of the struggles that was a struggle with this particular utility, and I've also seen this elsewhere, is when you have that many disparate systems that don't talk to each other, sometimes you end up with a kind of I wouldn't call it a Band-Aid solution, because, it does actually work in a lot of cases, but it's not ideal, where you're keeping track of where all these different pieces of data need to go in an Excel spreadsheet or something like that. And in a lot of cases, these are older systems. They may not have any geospatial component at all. So in addition to all the apps that are going out in the field, there might also be like a analog paper map book that's printed out like every 6 months and getting marked up by crews in the field, and they're using highlighters, and it's really important for them for their day-to-day activities. but that information isn't coming back into the organization. So it's really kind of something that stays in the truck. It helps the crew get their work done, but the organization's not getting that benefit.
Yeah, they end up working around the system instead of through it, and letting the tools really help them. Let's hit a couple of things real quick for the audience to really look for. I'm sure they've lived enough of those pain points, and they're fun and scary and illustrative stories to tell. I think there's a couple of things that happen when you look at enterprise work management. There's a tendency to get really focused on what's the work, how do I schedule it, how do I optimize it. I get it out to the mobile device, but then oftentimes it'll stop there. It won't remember the work that they're doing is inherently spatial. They're going to go find a gas valve. They're going to go walk a span of one of the circuits looking for vegetation that's potentially problematic. And how do we actually help them do the work? So enterprise work management sometimes gets you to the point where the work is out on the device, but doesn't do as much to support that field user in actually completing the device and completing the work and having everything they need to do that, including mapping support. And coming the other way around, enterprise mobility, sometimes it'll really focus on what tools do they need to support that, but they may not be doing some of the optimization, or they may not really be getting the data down to the device or the work down to the device in the way that they need. So it's important to consider both pieces of that: the schedule optimization, raising the right work, getting it out there, but then also helping them through it. And one of the challenges that every utility deals with is, what data do you need? There's so much data, and how do you do mapping right? And we see a lot of, we'll talk about this in a minute, I guess, about work management apps that maybe underestimate the importance of GIS or the complexity of it, but we'll send multiple gigabytes of data down to some of these field devices, and there's a real trick to managing that data so that it's not burdensome for them to download and maintain on the device. It's always up to date and it's always there. And of course, as you know, Jeff, offline is a key requirement for utilities, not just for low coverage areas, but emergency situations is kind of the killer use case. And I know we've both seen users out in the field that know that part, but they end up just loving how fast the app is when things are there offline for them and ready to go.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, a lot of those challenges come about when you look at that. We told a lot of stories and had some fun with the kind of some of the systems that we see as they exist today. And then when you start to think about what is the future state, a lot of those questions really come up. Like, maybe you think you're really taking GIS into account, but are you oversimplifying like the role that the GIS could play? Or, in a lot of cases, is the data flow being considered? So looking at kind of a holistic view of all the systems that'll be involved. In a lot of cases, you're replacing, a dozen or more legacy systems with an integrated set of maybe 2 or 3 new modern systems. How is the data going to flow around between those? Because you don't have to look at them as point solutions anymore. These are really modern integrated systems for the modern enterprise. And thinking about that a lot of times can be a challenge to get out of that kind of old way of thinking and into the new way of thinking as you kind of move from what is to what could be.
Yeah, and I kind of started with that simple, there's a lot of data to get out there. Like, it's tricky, and we use the native Esri runtime SDK to render millions of polls and have it perform on a mobile device, have that perform well, have it store well. That's a far sight from being able to then be able to update and edit and add and draw in what it is and offer corrections or improvements on the location quality or some of the other GIS data in the field that's so important. I wanted to comment on something that you brought up earlier a little bit, and that's just this idea of all these point solutions and how challenging that is to manage. You really, as you start to step back and look at this, I mentioned that CIO's view of things, you really start to say, what is it that would allow me to go from 36 or 42 down to 1 or 2 or 3? As I recall, maybe that CIO was looking to get it down under 10 across the enterprise. And that's a big enterprise. That's cutting out 32 applications for that CIO. And so you need to start asking the question, well, what am I looking for, a solution, or am I looking for a platform that delivers the capabilities that I can then have a targeted staff that knows how to configure, maintain, operate. And so you really start to look a little bit more at platform and what can I use and configure to do what I need. And then as you start to get down and take the user's view of it, you need to make sure that whatever platform that is going to support getting the workflow tailored so that in a scenario where you've got 5,000 or 6,000 users to train, that training is fairly minimal. You're not wasting their time in the field trying to figure things out, and you're not spending a bunch of time trying to train these people, because at 5,000 users, that time adds up really fast. On the other hand, you get these point solutions and they're great. Sometimes they're easy to figure out right out of the gate, but even if they're not, you got a handful of users, they're going to use it for a short period of time maybe, and some of those efficiencies aren't as important. So really looking for platform that's configurable is important as you look at this at an enterprise view.
Yeah, and I would just second a lot of what you just said. I think, that word platform really is appropriate for that kind of modern integrated system I was talking about. Another problem with those point solutions that I've heard is, crews in the field would have an input on something as simple as, a meter replacement at a home. They would have one input that would have to be copied and pasted into like 7 individual applications. And that's not really the best use of their time, and they don't really like having to do it. So having that kind of a platform solution that can both integrate and bring to the field all of this information that they need to do their job, but be tailored to a work type that is specific and shows them only the information that they need and nothing that they don't. It allows them to be more efficient, to be safer in the field, to really focus on the work at hand and not get distracted having to, copy things into 7 different applications in the field, right? That platform idea of being able to kind of implement the platform and be able to tailor it to all that work going on in the field is a really powerful idea.
Yeah. Let's talk for a little bit about why field service is actually really hard for infrastructure companies, utilities especially, but others as well. I mean, there are field service applications that support your satellite TV installer and everything, and those work at a scale that's small, they're cheap, they're fast to deploy. And let's talk a little bit about why that formula gets a little more challenging when we get into infrastructure. I'll start. I know you got plenty to say here too, but having worked in GIS for a long time, and you worked for Esri for a long time, you've been in it longer than I have. But
I worked there a minute, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we see from the GIS angle, we see a lot of people come in with a field service app, and it's really good at what we talked about before. It's good at creating the work orders. It's good at shipping them out to the field. But when you've got utility field workers, they're needing to understand their operational picture and what's going on around them. They need to understand this valve, and if I work on it and I shut it off, who does that affect? They need to know if it's functioning well here, what's happening, or if it's not functioning well here. How about the customer next door? What's going on over there? Are they even on the same segment, same circuit, those kinds of things? And so there's a lot of context that they need, and we find GIS is a key piece of providing that back to them. And look, field service is a whole lot harder than a lot of people think. They do a lot of things really, really well. We have not seen a single solution that really does GIS well enough to satisfy real utilities use cases. So, a huge one that we see challenges with is their offline capability, because the data is so much larger and the synchronization model is so much different than the field service app. They get into redlining and as-builting, or in other words, drawing out what they actually install or what they find in the field, is something that seldom works at all. Definitely doesn't work offline in most of those field service apps natively. And then offering corrections or edits is another place where they fall short.
And that's one thing that I hear, I know you hear it too. I mean, we hear that so consistently. That idea of if something's incorrect, like, a lot of these work management systems can bring a map to the field that may require a data connection or something. But if they see an issue, being able to fix that issue is oftentimes like a really long bureaucratic process. So having access to like a real GIS where you're connected to the GIS information and you're able to correct those things that you find wrong in the field. Not only is it good for the GIS department, it's also good for the field workers because now they've got an ownership stake in making sure that they, maintain the accuracy of the data, those assets that they need to find in the field. And sometimes they have the added challenge that they're underground. There are things that they can't see, right? So they really need to have some confidence in the data that they have available to them, that they're actually working in the right place. They're going to find the asset that they need.
Yeah, have you seen this? I talked to a field worker not too long ago that said they give me the paper map book, they tell me to mark it up, I turn them in, every so often, and I've just quit doing it because I've never seen a single correction made based on the stuff I submitted. So I just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, and I've heard the other level of that too, which is like the team that handles those paper correction requests that come in from the field are in a completely different department within the organization, and they just stack up and they have to get approved by somebody in the GIS department with eyes. And these people have a day job, they have other work that they have to do. And it's no fault on the people who are in that pipeline to try to get those things fixed. It's just an inefficient process. And that process can take months or years before those corrections ever make it into the GIS. And
they got to redraft them from scratch. Coffee gets spilled, things blow away, right?
Or they end up just keeping it in their truck because they're like, hey, if I can, if I know this is wrong, the next time I go out there, I'll know, oh yeah, this was wrong.
Yeah. Hey, it's probably time for us to do the confessional too as GIS people. So we've seen a lot of GIS apps that try and do work management and fall short. Do you want to talk about what we see there?
Yeah, and I think, obviously, we're a GIS company. We do a lot of GIS. There's a lot of GIS apps out there from Esri and their partners that can do work management. But at some point, they kind of, the functionality from the work management side will kind of leave off when you start to talk about a really truly enterprise work management application like a Salesforce field service or an SAP service and asset manager. I mean, these are very different applications that we're talking about. So those GIS applications will fall short in a few ways. Like some of the things that I hear about is long cycle construction projects. So it's a really large, multiple groups within the organization have to coordinate on something like this. Those GIS applications that do work management really can't kind of handle that. Sometimes it's as simple as like being able to track time, to be able to log a time card in the field. That might be something that's missing. So there's more stuff too, being able to track the materials that go on the ground and be integrated with the enterprise asset management system. So if there's a reported problem from a manufacturer, you can go back out and find all that stuff. It's a really important thing, especially for gas utilities. So being able to have all of that in a lot of cases is what leads somebody to looking at one of those enterprise work management systems in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. We've gained a healthy respect for what they do. And as you know, Jeff, and some of our watchers will know, we've made a real conscious decision as a GIS company to provide GIS capability that complements it, integrates with work management really well. We have great respect for what a good work management system really does, and are not so proud to think that, yeah, we'll just build that real quick, or we'll just throw it in a GIS database and sort of make it work, right?
Right, exactly. And it works to a point, and then you're looking at one of those really, kind of enterprise level work management applications. And that's really kind of at the crossroads of what we do. I mean, we as a company, we work with utilities who are looking at enterprise work management and asset management and using that with a world-class GIS. And so they recognize the value of the GIS data, and that's what leads us to have conversations with them, to be able to work with them toward success of this kind of integrated platform that we've been talking about today, where you bring the best of breed for enterprise work management, the best of breed for GIS, and kind of bring it all together within the organization and on the device that's in the truck or in the field with the people actually getting the work done.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I started to feel a little bit like maybe this had turned into a woe is us. This is really hard. We've recounted a lot of the challenges that show up, maybe in an effort to have some empathy with what our listeners are facing. But there are solutions to it. There are great solutions. They continue to improve. We're part of delivering those solutions. And so let's spend our last few minutes here talking about what a solution might look like. And And we'll end then with an invitation to watchers to reach out for us. We're happy to come and talk with you about your specific situation. So after we get through a little bit of what a solution looks like, we'll offer some contact information and look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I think we've been working on a pretty good segue into that. So it begs the question, like, what does the solution look like? I mean, we've talked about all these things that maybe worked in the past, and you want to kind of move into a more modern system or platform type solution. That modern solution, in a lot of cases, we've talked about and kind of belabored the point that, there's no real one solution, one application to rule them all, so to speak, that can do the best of GIS and the best of work management. So modern technology and the wonders of the modern integrated enterprise systems, we can use things like deep links on a device to really make it so that, yes, there's a multiple application solution at play, but it doesn't really look like that. You're not closing one application and opening another. The user experience is that you flow from a specific work view to more of a map view, and maybe then to a forms view with another application like Survey 123 or Eureka or Murata or something like that. So you can really take a best of breed approach and bring these things together in a way that's seamless. And I alluded to this earlier, that is really tailored to the work type at hand. And that's really, in my experience, where the light bulb starts to go off. A lot of times people hear multiple app solution and just like, trying to get away from 42 or 36 apps, like, well, that's exactly what we're trying to get away from. So when you kind of explain, well, the good news is this can be tailored as an experience specific to vegetation management or leak survey or field inspections or cathodic protection or whatever it might be, the solution can be tailored to show that crew only what they need to get the job done and nothing else, so that it's really focused. And that has so many advantages. So, it's almost like zero training simple. I know that's a phrase that you like to use, but that's our experience. Like, we feel like, I know, we have the product that we've been kind of talking around, I'll mention by name, is Lemur. It's our mobile GIS application. And the way that we approach that, from a product perspective, is if we have to write a manual on how to use the Lemur application, like, we're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? So it's like, we make Lemur so that it can be really hyper focused on showing a non-GIS person who's in the field, right? A field worker. They don't care anything about the stuff that you and I, work with every day, kind of getting really nerdy with the GIS. They just want to see the assets on the map. They want to know where they are so that they can be more efficient and safe. And Lemur is really focused on that. And, it's not unique to us. I mean, you can do the same thing with, some of the applications from our partners like SSAM or Salesforce Field Service. So yes, it's multiple applications, but it's a unified experience. And I guess that's how I would kind of sum that up.
Yeah, I think unified experience, and the thing is that both of those applications, so our field service partners applications and Lemur, are really designed to be configured such that they can handle everything from vegetation management to cathodic protection and leak survey and all those kinds of use cases that you see so frequently. You take this one platform approach. You say, let's take an SAP or a Salesforce work field service app, and let's take Lemur together and let's deploy that as our enterprise platform for field work. And now we've got a pair of applications that we can really deliver the vast majority of our field service with.
Yeah, and it brings together all those things we've been talking about. So that description about the data flow, what information needs to go back into the GIS. Maybe it originates in work management, but it ends up in GIS. And maybe other things originate in GIS, but the final result ends up in work management, or maybe it goes to both. Those options are all on the table with the integrated solution like this. And another important point, I just want to mention this, and then I'll kick it back to you, but you don't have to give up anything, right? So you have the ability to connect to external devices like a high accuracy GPS device, or it could be something as trivial as like an Apple Pencil if you're using iPads in the field. Yeah, a stylus makes the input in a lot of cases when you're wearing gloves and you're busy doing other stuff. It makes that input a lot easier. And so again, you don't have to give anything up. You get all the same functionality plus some things you probably didn't think about, and it's all integrated.
Yeah, you mentioned that back and forth between apps. It really is amazing how seamless that looks. And I think a lot of our listeners, watchers will recognize that when they tap a link in their email, it opens up the web browser. They read it, and then most phones now will even just let you kind of swipe back and you're right back in your email. And it's that same kind of transparent experience where you go to a different view of it, you come back. We even allow return trip processing. So maybe they're pushing some work information. Maybe they're showing a representation of all their work orders into the map in Lemur. They can see the important details. So they got one single view of everything. And then maybe they're going through, let's say, a leak investigation. They go through, they collect some data, they take their readings. Well, maybe those readings, the location and the readings need to be stored back with the work order so that they can look back in time as how that leak has evolved over time. And at the end of their workflow, their spatial workflows, they're putting those in Lemur. They can tap the push to field service. There's no copy paste involved. It sends the data right back over to that field service application and enters it in with the work order. So there's not that copy paste. There's not even the flip back and forth to see the data because you got one set of data in one screen and one in the other. You're able to consolidate into a single view, and you're able to transfer the data back and forth to where it really belongs and where it needs to be stored.
Yeah, and modern technology too, that's a good point. Another advantage is that there's a lot of data confidence. And what I mean by that is if you're in a really remote location and you're doing all these things we just talked about and you don't have a data connection, like all of these applications that are integrated on the device can all work completely offline. So you don't really have to worry about it as long as you don't like drop it in the lake. I mean, obviously the laws of physics cannot be overcome. But once you get the device back to having a data connection, all that work you did is saved on the device and gets synced back. And that integration between those applications, you're not losing anything when you lose the data connection. You can still continue to work just as you did when you had one.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I coined the term offline awesome. I don't think anybody's going to write a business school book about it or anything like that, but it came out of my frustration with people that I've worked with, claiming their applications work offline and then finding out that what they mean by work offline means that it doesn't crash and delete your entire disk the minute it goes offline. So, we really understand the importance of offline and reliability when offline, and for utilities customers in particular. We recognize that oil and gas, another great example. You might be going through really long stretches for days where you're offline and you need that data to be there when you need it, and running back to find a signal is not just a 2-minute exercise. It can be an hours or days kind of exercise. So I know that's been a real emphasis for us in terms of making sure that we're serving utilities, specifically infrastructure customers specifically.